After weeks of tough negotiations with religious and far-right coalition partners, Benjamin Netanyahu has announced that he has succeeded in securing a deal to form a new government in Israel. It will be the most right-wing coalition in Israel's history. Netanyahu made the announcement on Twitter minutes before a midnight deadline was set by President Isaac Herzog. Now, the announcement came after Netanyahu's conservative Likud party and like-minded religious nationalist parties close to the ultra-Orthodox and West Bank settler communities won a comfortable majority in the November 1st election, promising him 64 of Parliament's 120 seats. But the agreement to form a government was held up by disputes over a package of proposed legislation on issues ranging from planning, authority in the West Bank, to ministerial control over the police. The new government, which Netanyahu must now present within a week, will take office after a year that has seen the worst levels of violence in the West Bank in more than a decade, with over 150 Palestinians and more than 20 Israelis killed.
רציתי להודיע לך שבזכות התמיכה הציבורית האדירה שזכינו לה בבחירות, עלה בידי להרכיב ממשלה שתדאג לכל אזרחי ישראל, ואני מתכוון כמובן להקים אותה בהקדם האפשרי.
Now, Israel will finally get a stable government after a turbulent period that saw Israelis go to 5 polls in less than 4 years. But the weeks of negotiations have made it clear that the coalition may still face significant internal tensions. Netanyahu has said that he will ultimately set the Israeli policy and is pledged to govern in the interests of all citizens in Israel. But the inclusion of the hardliners in the government, it's shocked Palestinians and liberal Israelis. Reports say Ben-Gvir of the Jewish Power Party is set to serve as security minister with authority over the police. He is an extremist politician known for his anti-hijab rhetoric. He was once convicted of incitement to racism and supporting a terrorist organization. Bezalel Smotrich of the far-right religious Zionism party believes Israel should annex the occupied territory. He's set to get the control of planning in the West Bank, giving him wide power over the lives of Palestinians. Another far-right ally, Avi Maoz, is the head of an anti-LGBTQ+ party. He will reportedly be placed in control of parts of the country's national education system. Arya Deri, the head of the religious party, is bidding to become finance minister, this despite a conviction of tax fraud. Netanyahu is returning after serving a record 15 years in top office, is on trial for corruption charges that he denies. For more on this, we're now being joined by Dr. Adas Cohen and is joining us from Tel Aviv. Dr. Cohen is a political science and international affairs professor at the University of Oklahoma. Thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast.
Hi. Hello.
Right. So my first question to you, the most right-wing coalition in Israel's history, the inclusion of hardliners here has shocked Palestinians and liberal Israelis, as I mentioned earlier. What do you make of this?
Well, on the one hand, you can say that the Israeli public has said what they said at the polls. On the other hand, I think it's important to remember that the difference between both coalitions was about 30,000 votes. And this coalition is indeed very right-wing and very much determined to have a certain agenda. So they will back Netanyahu, and Netanyahu has his own agenda, he wants to have stable government. He also is facing trial. So you have here a unique meeting of minds, so to say, in which they will promise each other a very stable coalition. And if we think of the previous government, which brought together different factions from different ideological beliefs, they were very unstable. But then, on the other hand, there was no attempt to enforce a certain status quo on the state. So I think we are right now facing very different period that is about to have to occur in Israel. And I think we're just right now seeing the beginning of it.
Right, absolutely. So do you think this new government can ensure stability after a very turbulent period, as you mentioned as well? What sort of policy shifts, if any, can we expect?
define stability, right? What is stability? For secular people, they are terrified of what's about to happen right now in Israel. They are talking about instituting a basic law, which is like a constitutional law in Israel, that will make the Bible studies or the Bible itself a part of the Israeli nation. Now, of course, Israel is a Jewish and democratic state, so one will wonder, why do they need to legislate this in a law? What stands behind it, which is basically funding different institutions, religious institutions. So I think what we're about to see right now is a change in the status quo, both in terms of how much funding religious and the different spectrum of Jewish religious institutions will get, but also in terms of what will happen legally in Israel, what will happen to the Supreme Court, what will happen to the basic laws that are basically guaranteeing human rights. This government is talking about annulling them. So, as I said, I think that indeed we are about to face a new era in Israel.
Right. Dr. Cohen, thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast with all your insights on this.
Of course. Have a good day.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.